The alarm clock rings. It's 6 in the morning, and already the world is knocking on your door. You rub your eyes, reach for your phone, and before your feet even touch the ground, you've absorbed more than your own share of worry. A text from your sister about her failing marriage. An email from your boss marked urgent. A voicemail from your mother who sounds tired and lonely. In less than 5 minutes, the weight of 3 different lives has landed on your chest, pressing down before you've even had your first sip of coffee. This is how many of us begin our days. Not only with our own problems, but with the problems of everyone around us. We take their sadness, their stress, their chaos, and we pack it neatly into our own hearts, as if we were responsible for carrying it all. We mistake love for burden, compassion for sacrifice. And before long, our shoulders sag under a load that was never meant to be ours. Think about the last time a friend shared their struggles with you. Maybe they were facing financial problems, or maybe they confessed to feeling deeply depressed. In that moment, you cared so deeply that you almost forgot where they ended and you began. Their pain became your pain. Their suffering spilled into your body like water into a cup, filling you with a heaviness that lingered long after the conversation was over. It feels noble, doesn't it? To care so much, to carry the weight of someone else. Society even praises this kind of self-sacrifice. We're told that being a good partner, a good child, a good friend, a good colleague means being endlessly available, endlessly supportive, endlessly strong. And yet, how many of us are secretly drowning under this invisible expectation? We think we are helping, but more often we are hurting. Not only ourselves, but also the people we are trying to support. Because when you carry someone else's suffering as if it were your own, you don't actually lighten their load. You only double the burden. You become exhausted, drained, resentful, and less able to show up with clarity, patience, and real compassion. Imagine a firefighter running into a burning house. His job is to rescue those trapped inside. But if he stays too long, breathing in the smoke, collapsing under the heat, he will not only fail to help others, he will also be lost himself. Carrying the suffering of others is like inhaling smoke that was never yours to breathe. And yet, most of us live this way every day. At work, we take on the stress of colleagues. At home, we take on the frustrations of family. Even scrolling through the news or social media, we absorb the pain of strangers we'll never meet. It feels endless, this weight of the world pressing down. And we tell ourselves, if I don't carry this, who will? But let me ask you this. What if compassion didn't mean carrying the load? What if love wasn't about emptying yourself to fill others? What if there is another way? Pause for a moment and picture a fresh mountain spring. Clear water bubbling up from deep within the earth, flowing down in abundance. Anyone who comes can drink, can refresh themselves, can be nourished. And yet the spring does not run dry. It flows naturally, effortlessly, because that is its nature. The spring does not say, I must give away all of myself until I am empty. It simply flows, and in flowing, it sustains life. This is the image of true compassion. Real compassion is not about draining your own well to quench the thirst of others. Real compassion flows from a natural source within you, unforced, sustainable, free. It nourishes others while allowing you to remain whole. The truth is, many of us have confused empathy with responsibility. We believe that to prove our love, we must take on the pain of others as if it were our personal duty. But this is like trying to drink the entire cup of suffering that belongs to someone else. You cannot drink it for them. They must walk their own path, face their own lessons, grow through their own struggles. This doesn't mean turning away from people in pain. It means standing with them, fiercely present, but without carrying what is not yours. It means being like the tree that offers shade, without uprooting itself to block the sun. It means offering a steady hand, but not walking their entire journey for them. Maybe you're listening to this right now and thinking, but if I don't carry their pain, doesn't that make me selfish? Doesn't that make me cold? That's the voice of guilt, a voice we've all heard. But guilt is not compassion. Guilt is the mind's way of chaining us to suffering that isn't ours. Real compassion is warm, expansive, freeing. You can feel the difference in your body. Think of a time when you felt genuine care for someone, when your heart opened, when love flowed through you, when your presence itself felt healing. That is compassion. Now think of a time when you felt anxious, tense, and crushed by the problems of someone else. That was not compassion. That was attachment, fear, and over-responsibility dressed in the costume of love. The distinction is subtle but life-changing. Genuine care expands your heart. False responsibility tightens it. One fills you with strength. The other depletes you. One allows you to be truly helpful. The other makes you weak. And here lies the first key lesson of this journey. You are not responsible for carrying what was never yours to hold. This truth is not an excuse to abandon people. On the contrary, it is the very thing that allows you to support them with clarity and strength. When you stop drowning in their suffering, you can finally offer a lifeboat. When you stop absorbing their chaos, you can finally be a calm presence. When you stop emptying yourself, you can finally give from a place that never runs out. So the question becomes, how do we know when we are truly compassionate and when we are merely carrying? How do we draw the line? The answer is felt in the body. True compassion feels light, expansive, flowing. Carrying feels heavy, cramped, anxious. Learn to notice the difference. Trust the signals of your own heart. If you leave an interaction feeling drained, resentful, or burdened, you were carrying. If you leave feeling soft, present, and open, you are compassionate. This awareness is the first step toward freedom. You don't have to stop caring. You don't have to harden your heart. You only need to learn a new way of holding love, a way that honors both their path and your peace. Because here is the paradox. The more you protect the peace in your own heart, the more available you become to others. The more you stop carrying, the more you can truly care. And in this shift, love transforms from a heavy weight into a flowing spring. Let's return to that image of the mountain spring. Its water flows without force. It gives without depletion. When you stand beside it, you don't feel burdened, you feel refreshed. Now imagine if the spring tried to give more than it had. Imagine if it said, I must pour every last drop until I am dry. What would happen? The spring would vanish. The life it supported would vanish with it. This is what happens when we confuse love with burden. When we carry the pain of others as if it were our own, we dry up the very source of compassion we hoped to offer. The Buddha's teaching reminds us of a different way. Compassion is not sacrifice. Compassion is wisdom in action. In Buddhism, compassion is often described as a boundless quality of the heart. It flows naturally when we stop clinging, when we stop identifying with every thought and emotion that arises. It is not something we create through straying. It is something we uncover when we remove confusion. But how do we uncover it in daily life? How do we keep our hearts open without drowning in other people's struggles? 1. The hand that holds, but does not clench. Picture holding a bird in your hand. If you grip too tightly, you crush it. If you open your palm completely, the bird flies away. But if you hold with gentle steadiness, neither gripping nor abandoning, the bird rests safely in your hand. This is the balance of true compassion. We can stand with someone in their suffering without clutching their pain as if it were ours. We can care deeply without collapsing under the weight of their struggle. This lesson comes alive in the Buddha's teaching of the middle way. Too much indulgence creates suffering. Too much suppression creates suffering. But in balance holding gently, without clinging, we find freedom. 2. The story of the monks and the woman. There is an old Zen story about two monks traveling together. They came to a river where a woman stood, afraid to cross. One monk picked her up, carried her across, and set her down. Hours later, the other monk said, "How could you carry that woman?" "We have taken vows not to touch women." The first monk replied, "Brother, I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story reveals how often we hold on to burdens that are no longer with us. Even after the moment has passed, we continue to replay it, relive it, retell it in our minds. And sometimes we do this not only with our own experiences, but also with the struggles of others. That compassion means helping when help is needed. But once the moment has passed, we let go. We don't keep carrying what is no longer ours to hold. 3. The candle and the flame. Imagine a single candle lighting another candle. The first candle does not lose its flame by giving light. In fact, the room becomes brighter with each new flame. This is the nature of compassion. It is not diminished by sharing, so long as we protect the source. But notice, a candle cannot light another if it is already extinguished. In the same way, you cannot help others if your inner flame is smothered by exhaustion and resentment. To truly serve, you must protect your own light. 4. Breathing with the world. One of the simplest practices in Buddhism is compassionate breathing. As you inhale, you silently acknowledge the suffering of others. Breathing in, "I am aware of your pain." As you exhale, you silently offer peace. Breathing out, "I send you ease." This practice allows you to be present with someone's suffering without drowning in it. You are not taking their pain into your body. You are simply acknowledging it, witnessing it, and offering your own calm presence. Like waves rising and falling, each breath reminds you that compassion is flow, not weight. 5. Boundaries as acts of love. Many people fear that setting boundaries makes them cold or uncaring. But in truth, boundaries are what keep compassion sustainable. Think of the banks of a river. Without boundaries, the water floods everywhere, destroying fields and homes. With boundaries, the river flows steadily, nourishing life along the way. In the same way, your boundaries are not barriers. They are guides that allow your compassion to flow where it is truly needed, without destroying your own peace. Saying no when you are depleted is not rejection. It is an act of love, both for yourself and for the other person. Because when you respect your own limits, the love you give is authentic, not forced. And people can feel the difference. 6. Compassion without attachment. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. When we cling to our own desires, we suffer. When we cling to the outcomes of others, we suffer. True compassion is caring without clinging, loving without ownership. This doesn't mean detachment in the cold sense of the word. It means allowing others to live their own path while you stand beside them, offering presence and kindness. It means supporting without controlling, helping without absorbing. 7. A modern example. The parent and the child. Consider a parent watching their adult child make mistakes. The parent wants to step in, to fix everything, to prevent every fall. But the truth is, growth happens through falling. To take away every struggle is to take away the chance to grow. A compassionate parent is not one who eliminates all hardship, but one who remains steady, loving, and available as the child learns their own lessons. This is the essence of Buddhist compassion. To walk alongside, not to walk instead of. 8. Returning to your own heart when you feel overwhelmed by the suffering of others. Pause and place your hand on your chest. Breathe deeply. Remind yourself, this pain is not mine to carry. I can care, I can love, and I can remain whole. This simple act of returning to your own body, your own breath, reconnects you with the present moment. It reminds you that your greatest gift to others is not your suffering, but your peace. Closing the chapter. So, here we are, standing at a turning point. We began this chapter with the crushing weight of other people's pain, emails, texts, phone calls, worries piling onto our shoulders. But now, a new possibility emerges. A way of being compassionate without being crushed. A way of loving without losing ourselves. You don't have to carry the entire world. In fact, you are never meant to. The Buddha's wisdom whispers, be the spring, not the sponge. Flow freely, don't soak until you sink. And so the question arises, if compassion is not about carrying, then what is it truly about? How can we live with open hearts without being pulled under by the tide of others' suffering? That is where we turn next into the art of releasing the anchors of the past, so that we may finally live with freedom in the present. It's late at night. You've brushed your teeth, turned off the lights, pulled the blanket up under your chin. The house is quiet, the world outside still. But inside your mind, it is anything but silent. A conversation from 3 years ago plays again, as sharp as the day it happened. You see the expression on their face. You hear the tone of their voice. You replay your own words and wish they had been different. The clock ticks past midnight. Your body is tired, but your mind refuses to let go. Again and again, it replays the same scene. You tell yourself, it's over, it doesn't matter anymore. But the moment clings to you like a shadow. This is the nature of the past when it becomes an anchor. It drags behind you, heavy and relentless, slowing you down, keeping you from moving freely through your own life. Think of how often this happens. You leave a meeting at work and spend the rest of the day rehearsing what you should have said. You recall a mistake from years ago and feel the same sting of embarrassment as if it just happened. You scroll through old photos and ache for the chances you didn't take, the words you didn't say, the paths you didn't walk. These memories are not alive anymore. The arguments are finished, the opportunities gone, the moments dissolved into air. And yet, inside the mind, they live on. They repeat. They echo. They play like broken records in a loop that never ends. The human brain has a strange power. It can take a ghost and make it feel solid. It can take a moment that no longer exists and make it feel as real as the chair you sit on. The original event might have lasted seconds, but the replay can consume hours, days, even decades. And the cost? Your energy, your joy, your peace. Every time you return to the past in this way, you are not only revisiting it, you are reliving it. You are suffering not from the event itself, but from your refusal to release it. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Every regret, every old argument, every what if is another rock inside. You don't see the weight, but you feel it. You try to run forward in life, but the straps dig into your shoulders. The load slows your pace, and every step feels harder than it should. Many people live their entire lives this way, dragging behind them a bag of past mistakes, past wounds, past conversations. They forget that the bag is optional. They forget that the stones are not chained to them. Maybe you know this feeling? Maybe you've woken up in the morning already tired, not because of what lies ahead, but because of what you keep carrying from behind. There's a simple truth. The past itself is not the problem. The past is gone. The problem is the mind's insistence on replaying it. The problem is the anchor we've tied ourselves to, the anchor we keep polishing, examining, holding, instead of letting it sink into the sea. Consider the sound of a bell. When you strike it, the sound rings out clear and strong. Then, naturally, it fades. Silence returns. But imagine if you demanded the bell keep ringing forever. Imagine if you grabbed it, shook it, forced it to echo long after its natural sound had ended. That's what the mind does with the past. It refuses to let the sound fade. Why do we do this? Because we think that by holding on, we can somehow change what happened. We think that by replaying, we can rewrite the ending. But no amount of replay can change the script. The past is not clay we can mold. It is stone already set out, and yet the mind resists this truth. It whispers, if I keep thinking about it, maybe I can fix it. Maybe I can prevent it from happening again. Maybe I can find a different ending. But instead of freedom, this endless mental rehearsal brings only fatigue. Let me tell you a story. A man once carried a jar of salt across a desert. Every day he poured a little into his water, and the taste became bitter. One day, exhausted, he stumbled upon a wide river. Out of desperation, he poured the entire jar into the river. And when he drank, the water was sweet. The salt was the same, but the container was different. Our regrets are like salt. Carried in a small cup the mind, they overwhelm us. Poured into the vastness of awareness, they dissolve. The past cannot be erased, but it can be released into a larger space. But before we can release it, we must first recognize how tightly we cling. Notice how often your thoughts drift back. Notice the way your stomach tightens when you recall that mistake, the way your chest aches when you replay that loss. Awareness is the first step. You cannot drop a weight you do not realize you're carrying. Perhaps you've heard the phrase, the past is a foreign country. But for many of us, it's not foreign at all. It's where we secretly live. We wake up in the present, but our hearts remain trapped in yesterday. This is the pain point of modern life. Surrounded by reminders, social media memories, digital archives, constant comparison, we are encouraged to relive, to replay, to return again and again to moments that no longer exist. And in doing so, we sacrifice the only thing that ever truly exists. This moment, right now. Think of the opportunities lost while your mind was replaying something long gone. Think of the conversations you missed because you were too busy rehearsing old ones. Think of the joy you overlooked because your eyes were fixed on regrets behind you. This is the anchor of past thoughts. Heavy, invisible, but powerful enough to keep an entire life from moving forward. And so the question arises, if the past is already gone, why do we keep carrying it? And more importantly, how do we finally put it down? That is where we turn next to the wisdom of the Buddha and to the practice of meeting life as it is, not as it was. The past cannot be undone, but it can be released. The Buddha often taught that suffering is not in the event itself, but in the mind's resistance to letting the event pass. A thorn pricks your hand, that is pain. But if you grasp the thorn, hold it tightly, press it deeper, that is suffering. The prick was momentary. The grasping is optional. The same is true of our thoughts. The conversation, the mistake, the loss, these moments already ended. But we hold them, replay them, press them deeper. And in that clinging, we suffer long after the original wound has healed. 1. Meeting each moment as new imagined standing by a river. Water flows past, never the same twice. You place your hand in it, and the current rushes over your skin. But the water you touched a moment ago is already gone, replaced by new water, new flow. This is the nature of life. Each moment arises and passes, arises and passes. The Buddha's teaching of impermanence anicca reminds us that nothing remains. Joy fades. Sorrow fades. The sound of a bell fades. Life itself is a river, and freedom comes when we allow it to flow, rather than clutching at each passing drop. 2. A story of the two arrows. The Buddha once gave a simple analogy. Imagine being struck by an arrow. That arrow is painful. But now imagine being struck by a second arrow in the very same wound that is suffering. The first arrow is the event itself. The second arrow is our replay, our resentment, our refusal to let go. Most of the pain we feel is not from the first arrow, but from the second. The past has already shot its arrow. The question is, Will you keep shooting yourself again and again? 3. Practice of noting and releasing when the mind drags you back into old memories. You don't need to fight it. Fighting is just another form of clinging. Instead, you can note gently, thinking, remembering, replaying. Just naming it gives you distance. Then, like placing a leaf onto a stream, let the thought float away. It may return, and when it does, you repeat, thinking, remembering. Place it on the stream again. Over time, the grip loosens. The anchor lifts. 4. The bell and the silence. Recall the image of the bell. Struck once, it rings, then fades. The fading is not a failure. It is its nature. In the same way, when we allow experiences to fade, we are not abandoning them. We are honoring their nature. Every moment is meant to rise and fall, to appear and dissolve. To keep striking the bell, demanding it ring forever, is to live in illusion. To let it fade is to live in truth. 5. Forgiveness as release. Many of us hold on to the past because of guilt, our own mistakes, or anger mistakes of others. Forgiveness is the act of loosening the anchor. It does not mean erasing the event, nor excusing harmful actions. It means refusing to let the event chain your heart forever. Think of a bird caught in your hand. You can clench tightly, and both you and the bird will suffer. Or you can open your hand and let it fly. Forgiveness is opening the hand, not for their freedom alone, but for your own. 6. A modern example. The email you can't rewrite. Picture this. You send an email at work, and the moment you hit send, you realize you made a mistake. Perhaps you misspelled a client's name or sent it to the wrong person. Instantly, your mind races, why didn't I double check? What will they think of me? Hours later, you're still replaying it. Days later, you remember it while lying in bed. Months later, the memory returns at random, tightening your chest. But the email is gone. The moment passed in seconds. The only thing alive now is your refusal to let it go. When you see this clearly, you can laugh gently at the mind's habit. You can whisper to yourself, the email is already sent. The bell has already rung. Let it fade. 7. Anchoring in the present. The antidote to the past is presence. Each time the mind drifts backward, gently return to what is here. The breath entering and leaving your body. The sound of a bird outside the window. The warmth of the cup in your hand. This is not denial of the past. It is release. You are not erasing memory, but refusing to be trapped by it. You are choosing the river over the anchor. 8. Transformation, not erasure. The Buddha did not teach us to forget the past, but to transform it. Regret becomes compassion when we recognize our shared imperfection. Loss becomes gratitude when we honor what was given. Mistakes become teachers when we allow them to guide wiser choices, like a calligrapher turning a slip of the brush into a new design. We can weave our past into beauty rather than into chains. 9. Returning to flow. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine dropping that heavy backpack of stones. Imagine stepping into the river, feeling the current wash around your legs. The water does not demand you to cling. It carries everything forward without effort. This is the gift of impermanence. This is the freedom waiting when we let go of the anchor. Closing the chapter. We began with sleepless nights, haunted by conversations long finished, dragged down by memories that refuse to fade. We saw how the mind turns echoes into chains, how it keeps ringing bells that have long since gone silent. And now, we glimpse another way to let the river flow, to meet each moment as it comes, then allow it to pass, to forgive, to release, to return again and again to the only time we ever truly have, the present. So let me ask you, if the past is already over, why keep living there? What new life might unfold if instead of clinging to yesterday, you allowed today to finally arrive? That is where we turn next to the illusion of control. and how clinging to certainty in an uncertain world can bind us, just as tightly as the past itself. Picture this. You've made a 5-year plan. You know where you'll live, what job you'll have, maybe even when you'll start a family. You've mapped it out carefully, every step accounted for, every possibility neatly organized. You feel safe, secure until life laughs. Suddenly, the job is gone. The partner leaves. The market crashes. The illness arrives. And just like that, the plan shatters into pieces. This is one of the deepest frustrations of modern life. We crave certainty in an uncertain world. We tell ourselves, if I can control everything, then I will finally be safe. So we design schedules, budgets, goals, timelines. We cling to calendars and spreadsheets as if they were lifeboats. We draw blueprints for the future and believe reality will obey. But reality does not obey. Reality moves with its own rhythm, its own law, its own mystery. And when it doesn't follow our script, we suffer. Think of the man who saves every dollar for retirement, only to lose it all in a sudden market crash. Think of the woman who plans the perfect wedding, only to watch the relationship collapse months before the big day. Think of the student who studies relentlessly for a dream career, only to discover the industry changes overnight, and the job no longer exists. When control slips from our hands, we feel betrayed. We think, this isn't fair. I did everything right. Why is this happening? And beneath that anger lies fear, the fear of not knowing what will come next. The human mind loves maps. We love straight lines and clear directions. But life is not a highway, it is a winding river. It bends, it twists, it floods, it dries. And yet, we cling to the idea that we can force it into a straight canal, perfectly measured, perfectly predictable. Think of how much energy we waste trying to control things that cannot be controlled. The weather, the stock market, the behavior of others, even our own bodies, which age and change no matter how fiercely we resist. We invest endless hours into managing the uncontrollable, and when reality refuses to comply, we collapse into anxiety and despair. Perhaps you've felt this in your own life. Maybe you've tried to control the outcome of a relationship, monitoring every word, every text, every silence, hoping to keep it from falling apart. Maybe you've tried to control your career, climbing, pushing, sacrificing, only to watch the company downsize. Maybe you've tried to control your health, counting every calorie, measuring every step, only to face an illness you never expected. And in each case, the more tightly you grip, the more painful the release. Like trying to hold sand in your fist, the tighter the grip, the faster it slips away. The illusion of control is seductive because it gives us comfort. For a moment, we believe we are safe. We believe we have power over the chaos of life. But it is only a dream, and like all dreams, it dissolves when we wake. When reality diverges from the script, we feel not only pain, but shame. We blame ourselves. If I had planned better, if I had worked harder, if I had chosen differently, this wouldn't have happened. But this self-blame is just another attempt to preserve the illusion. If it was my fault, then maybe next time I can get it right. But here's the hard truth. No matter how perfectly you plan, life will surprise you. No matter how tightly you grip, reality will slip through your fingers. The question is not whether you can control it. You cannot. The question is, how will you respond when life does not go your way? Some people collapse. They sink into despair, paralyzed by the loss of certainty. Others rage, shaking their fists at the sky, demanding answers that never come. Still others numb themselves with distraction, avoiding the pain of unpredictability. But none of these paths bring peace. There is another way. But before we discover it, we must look deeply at the cost of control. Because control is not free, it demands a heavy price. Control costs us presence. While we are busy planning the future, we miss the life happening now. Control costs us relationships. When we try to force people into our expectations, we lose the beauty of who they are. Control costs us joy. Because every moment that doesn't fit our blueprint feels like failure, even when it is simply life being life. This is why so many people live tense, anxious lives. Their bodies may be in the present, but their minds are locked in the future, rehearsing, strategizing, tightening, fearing. They are never at ease, because ease is impossible when you are trying to control the uncontrollable. Think of the parent who tries to control every aspect of their child's life. The grades, the friends, the career. The child may comply for a time, but eventually, resentment grows. The parent loses not only the illusion of control, but also the warmth of genuine connection. Think of the manager who micromanages every detail, believing this will guarantee success. Instead, creativity withers, trust evaporates, and the very outcome they feared comes true. Think of yourself. How many times have you missed joy because you were too busy managing, fixing, controlling? How many times have you been at dinner with friends, but mentally rearranging tomorrow's schedule? How many times have you been on vacation, unable to relax because you were worrying about what might go wrong? This is the cage of control. It promises safety, but delivers stress. It promises certainty, but delivers disappointment. It promises power, but leaves you powerless against the flow of life. And so we arrive at the pain point. We are trapped in the illusion of control, suffering when life refuses to obey, blind to the freedom that exists beyond our grip. The question now is, if control is an illusion, what takes its place? How do we live without collapsing into chaos? How do we walk through a world we cannot control without fear? That is where we turn next to the wisdom of don't know mind, the open curiosity that allows us to meet life as it is, not as we demand it to be. When life takes an unexpected turn, our first instinct is usually resistance. We clench, we fight, we shout, this shouldn't be happening. But what if, instead of resisting, we leaned into the unknown? What if we allowed uncertainty to be a teacher instead of an enemy? Buddhism has a phrase for this shift: don't know mind. It is the mind that doesn't cling to fixed answers, that doesn't demand certainty, that doesn't insist reality conform to its blueprint. It is the mind of curiosity, openness, and humility. The story of the broken pate master potter once created what he thought was his most beautiful bowl. The glaze shimmered, the shape was perfect, but as he lifted it from the kiln, a hidden crack split the bowl in two. For a moment, he despaired, months of work gone. But then, looking closer, he realized the crack revealed a new possibility. He melted gold into the seam, creating a work of art more striking than before. This story echoes the Japanese tradition of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold. The flaw becomes the feature. The break becomes the beauty. This is don't know mind. We think the crack is disaster, but sometimes it is the beginning of something better than we imagined. 2. Control vs. engagement. Live with don't know mind does not mean passivity. It does not mean giving up effort. It means engaging fully with the present while releasing attachment to the outcome. The farmer plants seeds, waters them, cares for the soil, but he cannot control the rain, the sun, the wind. He engages wholeheartedly, but he does not cling. He works with reality, not against it. This is the path of freedom. Effort without fixation, dedication without demand. 3. The sky and the clouds. Imagine the sky. It does not control the clouds. The clouds come and go, forming shapes, bringing storms, clearing into blue. The sky remains vast, open, untouched. When we cling to control, we shrink ourselves into the shape of a single cloud, demanding it stay as it is. When we release, we rediscover our true nature as the sky itself spacious, limitless, at ease with whatever passes through. 4. A modern example. The job loss. Think of someone who loses their job. At first, it feels like the end. Panic sets in. Shame creeps in. The illusion of stability has collapsed. But months later, perhaps they find themselves on a path they never considered: launching a business, discovering a passion, moving to a new city. Looking back, they realize what felt like destruction was actually redirection. The map they clung to was too small for the life waiting to unfold. This does not mean every loss is easy, or every hardship immediately reveals its gift. It means that with Don't Know Mind, we stop labeling experiences too quickly as failures. We allow them space to surprise us. 5. The practice of curiosity. How do we live this way in daily life? One practice is simple. Replace judgment with curiosity. Instead of saying, "This is terrible," try asking, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of declaring, "This is the worst thing that could happen," ask, "What else might unfold from here?" Instead of tightening into fear, soften into wonder. Curiosity opens doors that control slams shut. 6. Trusting the larger pattern. The Buddha often compared life to a great net, each thread connected, each intersection influencing another. What we see is only a small part of the weave. When we demand control, we forget this larger pattern. We focus on one knot, blind to how it connects to the whole. But when we release, we trust that even when we cannot see the full design, the pattern is still there. This is not blind faith, but wise humility. We admit, "I don't know," and that's okay. 7. The garden of effort. Imagine planting a garden. You can prepare the soil, water the ground, remove weeds, but you cannot force the seed to sprout. You cannot command the sun to shine. You cannot order the rain to fall. You do what you can, with sincerity and care. Then you step back and trust the process. You don't abandon the garden, but you also don't sit there screaming at the soil, demanding results. This is the balance of wise effort and letting go. 8. Breathing into uncertainty. One practical meditation for Don't Know Mind is simply this. Breathe into the unknown. As you inhale, silently say, breathing in, "I open to what I don't know." As you exhale, silently say, breathing out, "I rest in trust." Each breath becomes a reminder that life is unfolding beyond your control, but not beyond meaning. Each breath teaches that peace is found not in certainty, but in presence. 9. The gift of surprise. Think of the most beautiful moments in your life. The people you met unexpectedly, the opportunities that appeared out of nowhere, the twists you never planned. How many of them came not from control, but from surprise? Life's greatest gifts often arrive unplanned, unpredicted, uncontrollable. To live in Don't Know Mind is to remain open to these gifts, to welcome the unexpected with arms wide rather than clenched fists. Closing the chapter. We began this chapter with broken plans, shattered certainty, the pain of life refusing to obey our blueprints. We saw how control, though comforting, is ultimately an illusion that costs us peace, presence, and joy. And now we see another way. To live with Don't Know Mind. To engage fully without demanding outcomes. To meet each moment with curiosity rather than control. To trust that cracks can reveal gold, that endings can birth beginnings, that the river of life knows paths our maps cannot see. So let me ask you, what if your freedom lies not in controlling life, but in dancing with it? What if peace is not found in the plan, but in the openness to whatever comes? That is where we turn next into the echo of regret, and how the past we cannot change can still become a teacher of compassion and humility. There are words we wish we could take back, decisions we wish we had made differently, chances we wish we had taken. They live inside us like echoes in a canyon, bouncing back again and again, long after the original sound has faded. Regret is one of the heaviest burdens the human heart carries. It is the voice that says, if only. If only I had spoken up. If only I had stayed silent. If only I had loved better. If only I had walked away sooner. The mind replays these moments endlessly, punishing us for what can no longer be changed. Think of a time you sent a message you shouldn't have. Maybe it was harsh, written in anger, sent without thinking. Minutes later, regret sets in. You want to grab the message back, erase it, undo it, but it's too late. Or think of a job you turned down, an opportunity you were too afraid to take. Years later, you look back and wonder what your life would be if you had chosen differently. Regret whispers late at night when the world is quiet. It rises in the middle of conversations when something reminds you of a mistake. It lingers in your chest like a bruise that never fully heals. And unlike ordinary sadness, regret has teeth. It bites, it gnaws. It tells you, this is your fault, and you will carry it forever. The weight of regret can feel heavier than grief. Grief says, this is what I have lost. Regret says, this is what I could have prevented. One is a wound from outside. The other is a wound we inflict on ourselves. Many people live with invisible chains of regret. The parent who worked too much and missed their child's milestones. The spouse who let words of anger wound someone they loved. The friend who didn't make the call, who didn't say, I'm sorry until it was too late. These memories replay not to teach, but to punish. Regret convinces us that the past defines us, and a single mistake is a permanent flaw. It says, you are the sum of your worst moments. You will never escape them, and so we live in self-condemnation. We smile outwardly, but inwardly we replay the courtroom of the mind, sentencing ourselves again and again. But regret is not always about great tragedies. Sometimes it is the small, ordinary moments that haunt us most. The careless comment that hurt a colleague, the birthday we forgot, the dinner we skipped because we were too busy. Years later, we look back and realize that the small moments were not small at all. That the human heart is fragile in this way. We think time heals all wounds, but regret proves otherwise. Time only deepens the grooves of self-reproach unless we find a way to release it. Why do we cling to regret? Because, like with control, we secretly believe it gives us power. If we keep replaying the mistake, maybe we can rewrite it. If we keep punishing ourselves, maybe we can prevent it from happening again. Regret feels like a form of responsibility, but in truth, it is a form of bondage. Imagine a musician playing a note wrong during a performance. If they stop, slam their hands down, and shout, I ruined everything, the music collapses. But if they keep playing, the wrong note becomes part of the song, a moment folded into the whole. The audience may not even notice. Regret is when we stop the song and replay the wrong note endlessly, forgetting there was ever music around it. Now think of how many people stay trapped in the past this way. They can no longer enjoy the present because they are obsessed with the moment they wish had gone differently. They cannot open to the future because they are shackled to a door that has already closed. This is the echo of regret, not just remembering the past, but reliving it as punishment. Not just recalling mistakes, but using them as proof that we are unworthy, broken, beyond forgiveness. And so we arrive at another pain point of human life. The weight of regret is not simply about what happened, it is about the meaning we attach to it. We tell ourselves, I failed once, therefore I am a failure. I hurt someone once, therefore I am unlovable. I made a mistake once, therefore I am broken forever. But are these stories true? Must regret always be a prison? Or can it become something else? That is the question we turn to next. how the teachings of the Buddha invite us to transform regret, not by erasing the past, but by using it as a teacher, a path to humility, compassion, and deeper love. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." At first, this might sound like a command to forget the past altogether. But Buddhism does not ask us to erase memory. Instead, it asks us to transform it, to take the echoes of regret and turn them into the ground for wisdom. 1. The calligraphers. Stroke. Imagine a master calligrapher at work. His brush moves swiftly, elegantly, until suddenly the ink slips. A line goes astray. In that moment, he has two choices: throw away the paper in anger, or fold the mistake into the design. With skill, he curves the stray stroke into a flourish, a new shape, a unique mark of beauty. What began as an error becomes the most striking part of the piece. This is the art of transforming regret. The past cannot be erased. The stroke is already made, but it can be woven into something new, something that deepens, rather than destroys. 2. Mistakes as teachers. Regret tells us we are broken. Buddhism teaches that mistakes are teachers. Every error is an opportunity to see more clearly our limits, our habits, our attachments. A harsh word shows us where patience was lacking. A missed opportunity shows us where fear held us back. A betrayal shows us where we too have been blind. Each mistake becomes a mirror reflecting what we most need to learn. When we view regret this way, it loses its poison. It no longer chains us. It guides us. 3. The practice of self-compassion. So many of us believe we must punish ourselves endlessly to prove we are good. But punishment is not the same as growth. Punishment freezes us in the past. Compassion frees us for the future. Try this. Place your hand over your heart and whisper gently, "I was doing the best I could with what I knew then." This is not an excuse. It is truth. Every mistake you regret came from the limits of that moment, your knowledge, your fears, your conditioning. Seeing this clearly allows you to soften. And in that softness, growth becomes possible. 4. The power of apology when regret involves another person. Apology can be a powerful medicine. But apology is not only words, it is transformation. It is living differently because of what you learned. Sometimes we cannot speak the apology directly. The person may be gone. The moment may have passed. Even then, we can bow inwardly, sending them our silent wish. May you be free from the harm I caused. This too is healing. This too is release. 5. Regret into compassion for others. Your regret is not yours alone. It connects you to every other human being who has ever wished they could undo a mistake. Which is to say, it connects you to everyone. Think of the countless people lying awake at night, replaying their own echoes. Think of how much suffering in the world is born from regret. When you feel your own, you are tasting a universal experience. And from that recognition comes compassion. You realize, I am not alone. We are all imperfect. We are all learning. Regret becomes the seed of empathy, allowing you to forgive others more easily because you know the weight they carry. 6. The story of Angulimala in the Buddha's time. There was a man named Angulimala, a feared bandit who killed many. Yet, when he encountered the Buddha, he experienced a profound transformation. He became a monk, devoted his life to compassion. Did his past vanish? No. The echoes of his actions remained, but he used them as fuel for awakening, living proof that even the gravest mistakes can become the soil of redemption. If someone like Angulimala could transform, then surely we can transform our smaller regrets into something luminous. 7. Regret vs. responsibility. It is important to see the difference between regret and responsibility. Regret paralyzes. Responsibility mobilizes. Regret says, I am ruined. Responsibility says, I have learned, and now I choose differently. The Buddha did not ask us to wallow in self-condemnation. He asked us to take clear, compassionate responsibility for our actions, and to walk forward wisely. 8. A modern example. The missed goodbye imagines someone who didn't say goodbye to a loved one before they passed away. The regret is crushing. It whispers, you failed them. But seen with compassion, this regret becomes a teacher. Cherish your relationships now. Speak your love while you can. Show up before it is too late. The past cannot be changed, but the present can be lived differently. Regret, transformed, becomes the doorway to a more loving life. 9. Practice. Turning regret into loving kindness. When regret arises, try this meditation. Inhale and say silently, may I forgive myself for being human. Exhale and say, may I learn from this with love. Then, extend it outward. Inhale, may all beings forgive themselves for their mistakes. Exhale, may all beings learn and grow with love. In this way, regret dissolves into compassion, first for yourself, then for the world. Closing the chapter, we began with the echo of regret, those sleepless nights of replaying mistakes, the sting of words unsaid, the weight of choices we wish we could undo. We saw how regret punishes us, convinces us that we are defined by our worst moments. But now, a new possibility opens. Regret need not be a prison. It can be a teacher, a brushstroke turned into beauty, a seed of humility that grows into compassion, a reminder to love more fully, live more wisely, forgive more easily. So let me ask you, what if your regrets are not chains, but doors? What if every mistake you made was an invitation not to punish yourself, but to grow? That is where we turn next, into the discovery of the natural state of the mind, the calm and clarity that was never lost, only covered. It's a Sunday morning. The world outside is quiet, the sunlight soft through the curtains. You sit down on a cushion, determined to meditate, determined to finally find peace. You close your eyes, straighten your back, and tell yourself, okay, be calm, be silent, empty the mind. But almost instantly, your thoughts begin racing. Did you pay that bill? What's for dinner? Why did your friend sound distant yesterday? And with every new thought, frustration builds. Stop thinking. Stop it. You're supposed to be calm. 10 minutes later, you open your eyes, defeated. Instead of peace, you feel restless. Instead of clarity, you feel failure. And so the practice that was meant to bring relief has become another source of stress. This is the hidden struggle of so many seekers today. We long for peace, but we try to force it into existence. We treat meditation, yoga, prayer, not as invitations to soften, but as competitions, as tasks to accomplish. We measure our progress, compare ourselves to others, criticize ourselves when the mind refuses to be silent. It is as if we are trying to wrestle our own minds into submission, demanding stillness the way a parent demands obedience from a restless child. And the more we demand, the louder the mind rebels. In modern culture, where achievement is everything, even spirituality has become another arena for performance. We ask, how long did you meditate today? How many retreats have you done? How many books have you read? How close are you to enlightenment? The language of striving seeps into the very path that was meant to free us from striving. And so, instead of finding peace, we find pressure. Instead of liberation, we find judgment. Instead of compassion, we find criticism. Think of the man who comes home from work, exhausted, and thinks, I'll meditate to calm down. But as soon as he sits, he berates himself. Why can't I focus? I should be better at this by now. Everyone else seems so serene. What began as a path of healing becomes another arena for self-attack. or the woman who forces herself into rigid silence, thinking this is what meditation requires. Every noise outside, every itch on her skin, every wandering thought feels like failure. She tries harder, clenches tighter, until her body aches and her mind burns with frustration. This is the paradox of the spiritual path. The more we chase peace, the further it slips away. Like trying to catch a feather by grabbing at it with clenched fists, the harder we try, the more it escapes. And so many give up. They decide, meditation isn't for me. Peace isn't possible. My mind is too messy, too restless, too broken. They believe they are unfit for stillness, when in truth, they were simply approaching it in the wrong way. Here lies the pain point. We treat inner peace as something to achieve, rather than something to uncover. We think we must create it through effort, when in fact, it is already here, waiting beneath the noise. Imagine a pond after a storm. The surface is muddy, churned by wind and rain. If you keep stirring it with a stick, it will never clear. But if you set the stick down and wait, the mud settles on its own, and the water reveals its natural clarity. Our minds are like this pond. Thoughts and emotions swirl like mud. But stillness does not come from fighting the mud. Stillness comes from not stirring. Yet modern life makes this incredibly difficult. We are conditioned to solve every problem through effort. Study harder, work longer, push stronger. And so when we encounter the mind's chaos, we apply the same strategy. Effort, force, control. But the mind is not a machine to be controlled. It is a sky to be witnessed. Think of the sky on a cloudy day. Dark shapes drift across, blocking the sun. But behind them, the sky itself is unchanged, vast, clear, blue. When you identify with the clouds, you believe the sky is dark. But when you remember the sky, you realize the clouds were only passing. This is the human mistake. We think we are the clouds, when in truth, we are the sky. We think our restless thoughts define us, when in truth, they are only passing weather. But because we forget this, we fight. We struggle. We try to push the clouds away. And in doing so, we exhaust ourselves. So many of us are caught in this trap. We mistake spirituality for perfection, meditation for silence, peace for the absence of thought. And when reality does not match this fantasy, we conclude we have failed. This is why so many people, despite their best efforts, remain restless even in their search for peace. They are caught in the paradox of striving for what can only be received. So here we are again. At the heart of human suffering, we seek peace, but in the very act of seeking, we block it. We want stillness, but in grasping for it, we stir the water further. We want clarity, but in forcing it, we cloud the mind. And so the question arises, if peace cannot be forced, how do we find it? If the natural state of the mind is clarity, how do we uncover it? That is where we turn next to the Buddhist teaching that stillness is not something we achieve, but something we remember. That peace is not built, but revealed. Close your eyes for a moment and take a single breath. Inhale, exhale. Beneath the rush of thoughts, beneath the stream of sensations, there is something steady, something untouched, like a mountain standing tall while clouds move across its face. The mountain does not chase the clouds, nor does it resist them. It simply remains. This is the essence of the Buddha's teaching on the mind. Stillness is not something we manufacture. It is our natural state, revealed when we stop interfering. 1. The nature of awareness. Imagine sitting at the shore of a vast ocean. Waves rise and fall. Some are gentle ripples. Others are fierce storms. But beneath the surface, the ocean is deep, silent, unshaken. Our thoughts and emotions are like waves, restless, unpredictable. But the awareness beneath them is vast and calm. You do not need to calm every wave to feel peace. You only need to remember the depth that was always there. 2. The story of the muddy Pandey disciple once asked the Buddha how to find clarity of mind. The Buddha handed him a bowl of water filled with mud. "Now," he said, "try to make it clear." The disciple stirred, scooped, shook, but the water only grew cloudier. Finally, exhausted, he set the bowl down. Slowly, the mud began to settle. The water grew still, clear, luminous. This, the Buddha said, is how the mind becomes clear, not by force, but by allowing. 3. Meditation as letting be. Many people think meditation means stopping thoughts. But true meditation is not suppression, it is observation. When a thought arises, "I forgot to send that email," you don't fight it. You notice it. You let it pass, the way you'd watch a leaf float down a stream. When an emotion surges, fear, anger, sadness, you don't push it away. You witness it. You breathe with it. You allow it to rise and fall, as all things do. Meditation is the art of stepping back into the role of witness rather than fighter. 4. The sky and the clouds. Recall the image of the sky. Clouds can be dark, heavy, storm-filled, but the sky itself is never harmed. It does not disappear when hidden. It does not break when lightning strikes. Your awareness, your natural state, is like the sky. Thoughts and emotions are passing weather. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it all. 5. A modern example. Restlessness at work. Imagine sitting in the office, overwhelmed by deadlines. Your heart races, your mind spins. You tell yourself, calm down, calm down. But the more you demand calm, the more restless you feel. Now imagine taking 3 slow breaths. You don't force the thoughts away. You simply notice, thinking, stressing, planning. You name them gently, like pointing out clouds. And in that small space, a shift occurs. You realize the stress is here, but I don't have to become it. This is the doorway to the natural state, choosing not to identify with every passing storm. 6. The release of striving. Buddha once compared awakening to opening your hand. Imagine holding a heavy rope, pulling with all your strength. Your arms ache, your shoulders burn, the rope cuts into your palms. And then, what if you simply let go? Stillness is like that. It does not come from pulling harder, but from opening the hand, from ceasing the endless struggle to control the mind. 7. The practice of resting in awareness. Try this practice. Sit comfortably, close your eyes. Instead of focusing on the breath, focus on awareness itself. Notice the sounds, the sensations, the thoughts. Don't follow them. Don't push them. Just notice. Rest in the space that notices. Rest in the awareness itself. This is the natural state, not empty of thoughts, but free from struggle. 8. Peace is your birthright. One of the most radical insights of Buddhism is that peace is not something we earn. It is our birthright. It is not created through effort, but revealed through release. You are not broken. Your mind is not an enemy to conquer. Beneath the noise, beneath the chaos, there is a clarity that has never been harmed, never been lost. 9. Trusting the mountain. When storms come, the mountain does not panic. It does not demand the clouds leave faster. It simply remains, knowing the storm will pass. This is how you can live. Not fighting every thought, not demanding perfect silence, but trusting your own depth. Trusting that behind every storm, your true nature is unshaken. Closing the chapter. We began this chapter with the struggle for peace, the restless meditator, the frustrated seeker, the endless battle to silence the mind. We saw how striving for stillness only stirs the water further. And now, a new understanding emerges. Peace is not something you create. It is something you remember. It is not found by effort, but by allowing. Like a muddy pond settling, like a sky that was always vast, like a mountain unmoved by clouds. So let me ask you, what if you stopped fighting your mind? What if you trusted that beneath every storm, you are already whole? That is where we turn next to the courage of opening the heart, even after it has been wounded, even after it has built walls of protection. There was a time when your heart was wide open. You laughed easily, trusted quickly, loved without calculation. Every connection felt natural. Every smile felt safe. But then something happened. Someone betrayed your trust. Someone left without explanation. Someone you loved deeply broke you in ways you never expected. And so you built walls. At first, the walls felt protective. They kept the pain out, or at least dulled it. They kept you safe from the sharp edges of disappointment. You told yourself, never again. I won't let anyone hurt me like that again. But walls do more than keep pain out. They keep love out too. Think of the person who was cheated on. Years later, they still suspect every new partner. They hold back pieces of themselves, never fully offering their heart. On the surface, they look strong, independent, untouchable. But inside, they are starving for connection. Or think of the friend who was humiliated in school. They grew up to avoid vulnerability at all costs. They keep conversations shallow, avoid showing weakness, never admit when they're struggling. To others, they seem confident. But in truth, they are lonely behind the mask. This is the paradox of protection. The walls we build to keep us safe also keep us isolated. We become like castles fortified, impenetrable, but empty inside. And in today's world, these walls are everywhere. People swipe through dating apps, terrified of rejection. They ghost each other instead of saying hard truths. They numb with work, with alcohol, with screens, anything to avoid the risk of feeling too much. The fear is understandable. The heart remembers. It remembers every betrayal, every abandonment, every harsh word. And so it hardens. Believing hardness is strength, but hardness is not strength. Hardness is brittle. It cracks under pressure. Real strength is flexibility, the ability to bend without breaking. And flexibility requires softness. Still, many of us live convinced that to open the heart is to invite disaster. We say, if I let them in, they will leave. If I show weakness, they will judge me. If I trust again, I will be hurt again. And so we stay behind the walls, convincing ourselves we are safe. But are we really? Because while the walls may protect us from pain, they also protect us from joy. They protect us from intimacy, from laughter that makes the chest ache, from the warmth of being truly seen. They protect us from the very things we long for most. This is the pain point. Protection becomes prison. We are starving for love, but we are terrified of love. We are desperate for connection, but we avoid connection. We long to be known, but we hide ourselves away. And the longer we live behind the walls, the heavier the loneliness becomes. We scroll endlessly through social media, feeling connected but not nourished. We keep conversations polite but not vulnerable. We keep relationships functional but not intimate. It is as if we are trying to survive on crumbs. When a feast is waiting, if only we had the courage to open the door. Maybe you know this feeling. Maybe you've been in a room full of people, but felt completely alone. Maybe you've kept your guard up for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to trust fully. Maybe you've wanted to reach out, to let someone in, but the fear of being hurt again froze your hand before it moved. The truth is, almost everyone carries these walls to some degree. Some are thin and flexible. Others are thick and nearly impenetrable. But they are there, built from years of wounds, disappointments, and heartbreak. And so we arrive at one of the deepest dilemmas of the human heart. The very thing we need most connection is the very thing we fear. We long for intimacy, but we guard against it. We crave love, but we armor ourselves against its risks. The heart's walls may keep us alive, but they do not let us live. And so the question arises, if the walls protect us, how do we lower them without feeling defenseless? If vulnerability invites both joy and sorrow, how do we find the courage to open again? That is where we turn next to the wisdom of the Buddha, and to the practice of softening the heart with compassion, beginning not with others, but with ourselves. The Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love." This is the eternal rule. The same is true of fear. Fear does not dissolve by building higher walls. It dissolves when we allow love, gentle, wise, compassionate love to flow again. 1. From walls to gates, the problem is not that we built walls. After all, walls once kept us safe. They were natural responses to pain. The problem is that we never learned how to transform those walls into gates, boundaries that open and close with discernment. A wall shuts everyone out. A gate opens selectively, guided by wisdom. Vulnerability does not mean tearing down all defenses recklessly. It means creating gates that allow love in while still keeping harm at a distance. 2. Self-compassion first. Often, we expect others to heal our hearts. We wait for someone trustworthy, someone safe, someone who will never hurt us. But real healing begins inside. When the Buddha taught loving kindness, metta, he began with oneself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be at peace. Only when the heart is softened toward itself can it extend that compassion outward. Think of your own wounded heart like a child hiding in a corner. The first step is not to scold it for being afraid, but to kneel down, open your arms, and say, "It's okay. You are safe with me." 3. The paradox of strength. Many of us confuse hardness with strength. We believe that if we armor ourselves enough, nothing can touch us. But hardness is fragile. It cracks under pressure. True resilience is soft. Bamboo bends in the storm, while rigid branches snap. A heart that allows itself to feel sorrow also allows itself to feel joy. A heart that accepts its wounds also accepts its healing. Softness is not weakness. It is the deepest strength. 4. The practice of vulnerability. Vulnerability does not mean telling your secrets to everyone. It means allowing yourself to be seen where it matters. It means admitting when you're tired, when you're afraid, when you're uncertain. Try this. The next time someone asks, "How are you?" instead of saying, "Fine," try sharing one small truth. "I've been feeling lonely lately." Or, "Work has been stressful, and I'm learning to slow down." These small openings invite connection. They are cracks where light can enter. 5. A modern example. Did divorcee consider a man who, after divorce, swore never to love again? Years later, he meets someone kind, someone patient. His heart longs to open, but fear stops him. What if the pain repeats? What if the loss returns? Slowly, he begins to practice. He shares a little more each time. He allows himself to trust in small steps. And with each act of courage, the wall transforms into a gate. The fear remains, but it no longer rules. This is wise vulnerability, not reckless, but courageous. Not blind, but open. 6. Compassion for wounds. Buddhism teaches that suffering is universal. Everyone carries wounds. Everyone has walls. When you realize this, you see that vulnerability is not a weakness that sets you apart. It is a bridge that connects you. When you share your wounds honestly, others recognize their own in you. They soften. They open. And in that moment, two lonely castles become connected through a gate of compassion. 7. The practice of loving kindness. Metta. A simple way to soften the heart is the practice of metta meditation. Sit quietly. Breathe deeply. Begin with yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. then extend to someone you love. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Then to someone neutral. Then to someone you find difficult. Finally, to all beings. This practice is like sunlight on frozen ground. Slowly, it melts the ice. Slowly, it allows flowers to grow again. 8. The heart as a garden. Think of your heart as a garden. Pain plants weeds, and in fear, you build walls to keep intruders out. But the walls also block sunlight and rain. The soil grows hard. The flowers wither. To open the heart is to remove parts of the wall, to let light back in. It is to water the soil with compassion, to nourish it with kindness, until the garden thrives again. Yes, weeds will still appear, but the flowers will return too. 9. The courage to love. Again, perhaps the greatest act of courage in life is to love again after being hurt, to risk again after being betrayed, to open again after being closed. The Buddha never promised that love would be free of sorrow. To love is to risk loss. But he showed us that the alternative, living behind walls, is a greater sorrow still. The question is not, will I be hurt? The question is love worth the risk? And the answer, again and again, is yes. Closing the chapter, we began with the walls of the heart, the fortresses we build to protect ourselves from betrayal, disappointment, and grief. We saw how those walls, while protective, also starve us of connection, intimacy, and joy. And now we see another way to transform walls into gates, to begin with self-compassion, softening toward our own wounds, to practice wise vulnerability, opening step by step, to discover that true strength is not hardness, but softness. So let me ask you, what if your heart's walls are not prisons, but gates waiting to be opened? What if every wound is not a reason to close, but an invitation to love more wisely? And here, our journey comes to a close, but not an ending, rather, a beginning. In the final chapter, we will weave together all that we have seen: the weight of others, the anchors of the past, the illusion of control, the echoes of regret, the search for peace, and the courage to open. We will plant the seed of hope, the gentle reminder that transformation is not only possible, it is already unfolding within you. The journey we have taken together has been long, winding, and deeply human. We began with pain, the crushing weight of carrying others' suffering, the chains of the past, the illusion of control, the sting of regret, the restless search for peace, and the lonely walls of the heart. Each chapter opened with shadows that many of us know all too well. And yet, slowly, we discovered another way. A way of compassion without burden, presence without anchors, openness without control, humility instead of regret, peace without striving, and love without walls. Now, in this final chapter, we weave it all together. We step back and see the pattern in the fabric we've been stitching, and we plant a seed of hope, a reminder that while life will always bring suffering, it also always offers freedom. 1. Looking back, the 6 lessons let us pause and remember where we've been. The weight of others showed us that love does not mean carrying every burden. Real compassion flows like a spring, sustaining others without emptying ourselves. The anchor of past thoughts revealed how much we suffer not from events themselves, but from replaying them endlessly. Freedom lies in letting the river flow, allowing each moment to rise and pass. The illusion of control showed us the futility of forcing life to follow our maps. Peace comes not from certainty, but from don't know mind, openness, curiosity, and trust in the unfolding. The echo of regret reminded us that mistakes do not define us. They can be teachers, guiding us to compassion for ourselves and others. Discovering the natural state reminded us that peace is not created, but uncovered. Stillness arises not from fighting the mind, but from remembering we are the sky, not the passing clouds. The courage to open showed us that the walls of the heart can become gates. True strength is not hardness, but softness, and love is worth the risk of sorrow. Each of these lessons points to the same truth. Suffering is real, but it is not final. Pain is inevitable, but bondage is optional. Too. Thread that connects them. Look closely, and you'll see that every chapter is about clinging. Clinging to others' pain, clinging to the past, clinging to control, clinging to regret, clinging to the demand for silence, clinging to walls of protection. The Buddha called this tanha, craving, grasping, attachment, the root of suffering. And what was the medicine? Again and again, it was letting go. Not abandoning love, but releasing the need to control it. Not erasing memory, but releasing the need to relive it. Not suppressing thought, but releasing the need to silence it. Letting go is not loss. Letting go is freedom. 3. A new way of seeing. Imagine holding a rope tightly, pulling with all your strength. Your hands ache, your arms burn, your whole body trembles with strain. And then, what if you simply released it? This is the shift. From clinging to opening. From control to trust. From fear to compassion. The challenges of modern life, emails, bills, deadlines, relationships, loneliness, will not disappear. But how we meet them can change everything. We can meet them with clenched fists or with open hands. 4. Planting the seed of hope. If you remember only one thing from this journey, let it be this: you are not broken. Your compassion is not a burden, it is a gift. Your past is not a prison, it is a teacher. Your plans are not your life, they are only sketches. Your mistakes are not your identity, they are stepping stones. Your restless mind is not a flaw, it is simply weather in the sky of your awareness. Your guarded heart is not beyond reach, it is waiting to bloom again. Every pain you carry can be transformed. Every wound can become wisdom. Every ending can be a beginning. 5. A daily practice of remembering transformation is not a single moment. It is a practice. Here are simple ways to carry this journey forward. When you feel burdened by others' pain, place a hand on your chest and say, I can love without carrying. When you are trapped in the past, take a breath and whisper, that moment is past. This is now. When control slips from your hands, ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of, why is this happening? When regret echoes, breathe in, may I forgive myself. Breathe out, may I live differently today. When your mind races, imagine the muddy pond settling. Allow instead of forcing. When your heart feels closed, practice metta. May I be safe. May I be at peace. Then extend it outward. Each of these is a small act. But small acts, repeated, change the fabric of a life. 6. A story to carry with you. A monk once asked his teacher, Master, what is the path? The teacher replied, this very step. The monk pressed, but what about the destination? The teacher smiled. Take this step with awareness, and the destination will take care of itself. This is the heart of the journey. You don't need to master compassion all at once. You don't need to erase every regret, every wall, every restless thought. You only need to take one mindful step, and then another, and then another. 7. Opening the door forward. As we close this journey, imagine standing at a doorway. Behind you is the heaviness of burden, the anchors of the past, the chains of control, the sting of regret, the restless striving, and the lonely walls. Ahead of you is a path, not free of pain, but filled with possibility. The path does not promise perfection. It promises practice. It promises growth. It promises the discovery that freedom is not somewhere far away. It is already here, in the way you meet this very moment. Closing words, so I ask you now, what would it feel like to stop carrying what was never yours? What would it feel like to let the river flow? What would it feel like to trust the unknown with curiosity? What would it feel like to transform regret into compassion? What would it feel like to stop fighting your mind and rest in your natural state? What would it feel like to open the gates of your heart again? This is the invitation of the Buddha's wisdom, spoken not as doctrine, but as possibility. Not as command, but as hope that the journey does not end here. It begins here, in this breath, in this moment, in this choice to live with a softer heart, a clearer mind, a freer spirit. May you walk forward lightly. May you love deeply. May you live wisely. May you be at peace.